Now, have you ever been told that you really need to let go of the past in order to be able to heal? And there's just something inside of you that feels stuck, like there's a part of you that just can't do that. Here's what I want you to consider. What if that part of you that feels like you can't do it has been trying to protect you this whole time? Because after years of doing this work, here's what I know. Letting go of the past isn't just hard because the memories hurt. It's hard because somewhere inside of you, your system still believes your resistance is keeping you safe, or on some level, it's serving a purpose. So by the end of this video, I think you're going to understand why, and you might start to see your own patterns very differently. Now, I want to tell you about a woman that I learned about during my training. She'd been getting headaches almost every afternoon for years. Same time, late afternoon, like clockwork. There was doctors, there were scans, there were specialists, and nobody could explain it. But here was the strange part. When she was a little girl, home wasn't safe. There was a babysitter who was abusive. And every day at school, when that last bell rang, all the other kids were excited to go home, but she wasn't. Every stop that school bus made brought her closer to her house. And so by the time she stepped off that bus, the headache had already started. Then one day she discovered something. It was by accident, but when she told her babysitter she had a headache, the babysitter backed off, treated her just a little bit more gently. Now, consciously, she wasn't trying to have a headache. She was just trying to get through the day. And it worked. And more about her later. Now, think about your own life for a second. Maybe you get anxious before a conversation that hasn't even taken place yet. Maybe you pull away the moment someone gets really close to you. Maybe you stay constantly busy because sitting still feels dangerous somehow. And maybe you replay painful memories over and over, like your mind is stuck on a loop and you just can't shut that off. Here's what I've learned after years of doing this work with people. Those reactions, they seldom appear out of nowhere. At some point, those reactions may have been the best way you knew how to navigate what was happening in your life. The problem isn't that you intentionally wanted to do those things. And the other problem is that your circumstances changed and the patterns that you had developed to survive didn't get that memo that they needed updated. And that's exactly why letting go of the past can feel so scary. Part of you senses that these reactions are doing something, serving some kind of purpose. So dropping them actually feels like you're dropping your guard. I'm going to ask you several questions, the same kind that I would ask if you and I were sitting across from each other in a session. Because here's what's happening underneath the surface. Your nervous system doesn't care if you're happy. Your nervous system cares about surviving. And what it learned, often while you were very young, is that a certain response kept you safe, and it filed that away. Problem is, it doesn't automatically update the file. It just keeps running that same program. You can't think your way out of a nervous system pattern, but you can begin to see it. And seeing it, and I mean really seeing it, is the very first step to loosening its grip. So instead of doing what most people do, which is asking questions like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I let go? I want you to ask yourself this question. What would happen if I actually let this go? And if you want to pause this video, go grab a piece of paper because I've got a couple more questions so that you can write the answers down. It might help your self-reflection. So here's the next question. What would happen if I actually healed this part of me? What would happen if I actually healed this part of me? The next question is, who would I be without this problem? That's a big one for some people. They don't know who they would be if they didn't have this problem to focus on. Next question. What does some part of me believe I would lose if I actually let this go? Now, if you noticed resistance come up with any of those questions, I want you to pay attention. That resistance, you're probably going to feel that in your stomach, But that resistance is often where the most important discovery is waiting. Resistance always shows up when you have deep healing to do in some part of your life. I want you to think about it this way. So let's imagine someone tries to break into your house and your dog barks, attacks the intruder, scaring them away. That danger was real. The dog was protecting his territory, protecting his family, doing what he was supposed to do. But now, years later, you moved, you got a different house, different neighborhood. There were no threats. And yet, every time the mailman walks up the driveway, the dog barks. Every time the wind rattles a window, that dog barks. And every time someone knocks on the door, the dog barks. He learned to protect his territory. The dog isn't broken. He's doing exactly what he learned to do. He just doesn't know that the real threat is over. And that's you. The resistance you just felt during those questions, it's the dog barking at the mailman. The real threat ended a long time ago. You just have not updated the file. In my consultations, I've watched people sit with questions like those, like the ones I just asked here, and suddenly realized things that they never connected before. Someone who shuts down during conflict realizes, that's exactly what kept me safe in a home where speaking up made things worse. Someone who can't stop worrying recognizes that hypervigilance was the only way they knew how to protect the people that they loved. And someone who keeps replaying a painful memory realizes that part of them believes that if they stop remembering, it means it didn't matter. Nobody told them to do these things. They learned them. And the learning stuck around long after the original situation ended. And that's what makes letting go of the past feel so complicated. You're not just letting go of a memory. You're letting go of something your mind still believes is keeping you safe. Remember the woman with the headaches? She grew up, moved out, built a life. Babysitter was long gone. But every afternoon, almost like clockwork, the headaches came back. Her body was still responding to a 3 o'clock school bell that hadn't rung in decades. When she finally connected the headaches to what she'd learned as a child, the headaches meant a little less danger, and something shifted. She didn't need to fight those headaches anymore. She needed to understand how they had protected her as a child. And once she understood what those headaches had represented, the pattern began to change. It's what I've seen over and over again. We don't change by beating ourselves up. We change by getting curious and discovering what we learned many years ago and recognizing that the lesson doesn't apply anymore. That's when letting go of the past stops feeling like losing something and starts feeling like understanding it. Here's something you can say to yourself when you find that old reaction showing up or that old pattern. I don't want you to remember this like as a script or a mantra, but more like a reminder. You can say to yourself, I'm not fighting myself anymore. I'm getting curious about what I once needed to survive. So here's the question I'd like to leave you with today. What would happen if you actually healed? I want you to sit with that, and you might be surprised what comes up. I'd love for you to tell me what you noticed. If you want to, drop it in the comments. These conversations matter, and you never know who else might read your words and feel a little less alone. And if you want to go deeper with this one-on-one, I offer free consultations. They usually last 30 to 60 minutes, where we can look at what's running underneath your specific patterns. And the link to that will be in the description. And I'll see you in the next one.